Coming up in episode 67. I'm not saying that they're not competent, that they're not talented, that they didn't work hard. I am not going to say any of that they were not qualified. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying is that when you have a room full of 200 women and 10 to 15 men, the men stand out and they're remembered easier, and the things that they do stand out a little bit more. Welcome to another episode of The Little Radio Show. My name is Sandra Fernandez, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Juan Alanis and Angelica Casares, and we're bringing you small talk about big topics. This week we have the first part of a two-part series in which we have a conversation that starts with mommy blogger Ashley Amanda Segura of New Mom in a New Style, and goes to part 2, which will run next week, in which we continue the conversation with Ashley and her husband Jeff Segura, who blogs from Daddy Style Diaries. The conversation is about how gender impacts how Jeff and Ashley get attention in the blogosphere, what it takes to work as a couple successfully when both of you are a team. And in that instance, we bring in Juan and Angelica, and we talk a little bit about what our perceptions are about all of this. Just a reminder that you can catch us every week on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central Time on hmsnetradio.org. Our show archives and the link to our iTunes and Stitcher channels are available at thelittlерadioshow.com. The Little Radio Show is brought to you in partnership with juanofwords.com and HispanicHouston.com. I am giving fair warning to everybody out there that we're talking gender politics today. Not politics, not really, but gender politics. In that...
Explain.
In that, I've worked most of my professional life in industries or in areas where there are mostly dominated by women. I worked in a library, I worked in public relations, I've got many family members who work in education. Mostly it's a lot of women, and there are just a few men. And one of the things that I can tell you I've seen happen over and over again is that men tend to have an easier time shining than women by virtue of the fact that there are so few of them that they just stand out because of their gender. Now, I'm not saying that they're not competent, that they're not talented, that they didn't work hard. I am not going to say any of that they were not qualified. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying is that when you have a room full of 200 women and 10 to 15 men, the men stand out, and they're remembered easier, and the things that they do stand out a little bit more. So I have been blogging now for about 3 years in a, blogging for money sense. And I love you, Juan. And I am never going to say that you're not talented, that you don't work hard, and that you're not completely useless. That you don't merit the attention that you get. But I will say that I always find it interesting that when you go out and do some stuff, I see 10, 12 women, there's Juan. The single soul man there. And everyone remembers Juan because he's the single soul man there. And so
I get that now. For a while, I used to think that in the past it was because he is a good writer. People remember him and things like that.
He is wonderful at that. You're right. He is an award-winning journalist. You've won state awards.
You're making me sound good.
Okay, you are. You're very good. There's a reason why we work together, and it's not just because you're the single soul man in the group. It's because you're very good at what you do, and I will absolutely say that. But I am also saying that, you get a boost from being one of the few men in an area where there are a lot of women. Now, I always thought that was just my particular view, my particular filter
Do you think the reverse is true if it was a room full of men and there was one woman in the room?
No,
that she would get more
actually-
attention than everybody else.
I actually think...
I don't think so.
Hold on. So
you don't
let's
think
give
that one woman in a room full of men would get more attention than the rest of the guys?
I think she would stand out. I don't think that she would. I don't think that she would benefit from it.
Yeah.
So really quickly, we have a guest in the actual. We have
No,
a guest.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So I was getting there. So what I'm trying to explain is why I invited Ashley to join us today. So today we have a guest. A lot of you know her as Ashley Amanda Segura. Some of you know her just plain Ashley. Some of you know her as... remind me, it's mommy. Yeah,
New mommy and
new mommy
era.
and a new mom.
mom
in a new era.
I
Okay.
keep saying mommy.
New
Yeah,
mom
yeah.
in a new
And
era.
how is it that the only guy in the room is the one that knows this?
Because
Well-
my market is so saturated.
No. So we've had Ashley on the show previously for a Mother's Day episode where she did this wonderful interview with Juan about what it's like to go to be a young mom in today's society, which I thought was really great. But
It's a beautiful interview. And if you haven't heard it, go back.
Ashley is married to Jeff Segura, who is also known as Daddy Style Diary,
Who's in the waiting room?
who is in the waiting room with their
Camila.
child. Yes. and
And
one of the
depending on how this conversation goes, I may need to go grab.
we were at a blogging conference recently, and Ashley has in. I am gonna let her talk in a minute. Ashley has been blogging longer than Jeff, and in fact, I'm gonna say twice as long as Jeff, and she can tell me in a minute whether or not that's correct. Ashley's been blogging longer than Jeff. She has a larger audience in some of her channels than he does. She's known most of these people that we saw longer than Jeff has.
She's a rising star. She's done it well, and she's done it quickly, efficiently, most have.
Yes.
And she's done it very good, which is, I know where you're going with this,
Yes.
but
So
just to
we
give
were
her credit
at
where
this-
credit is due, is that she's
Yes.
done very well as a mommy blogger that is very saturated, as you mentioned, Ashley. But she's done really well. And then there was an occurrence
Yes.
that happened where you guys were at a conference.
We were at 2 conferences, like, over a period of 1 week. And in both conferences, whenever she introduced herself, this is a comment that would come up. Oh, you're Jeff's wife.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which
you're
bugs
Jeff's
me.
wife. And I never heard anyone tell Jeff, oh, you're Ashley's husband. And so it was like, okay, how did it become to where she is the one who brought him into blogging? She's the one who started. She's the one who's been at this longer. But now all of a sudden her title is, oh, you're Jeff's wife. And, me being me, I'm like, I'm going to bring her on the show. We're going to talk about this.
Hold on.
So Ashley, what's your reaction to that?
Before that, thank you for joining us today, Ashley.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you very much for agreeing to talk about what's, you may end up going back and telling Jeff, you don't know what I said at the radio. So tell us what your blog is, how long you've been blogging, and what it's about, and how you got started.
My blog is New Mom in a New Era. I've been blogging for about 1.5 years now. I do motherhood, fashion, food, and culture.
I am going to break a taboo, and I'm going to say Ashley is 21. So she's a 21-year-old mom of a 1-year-old who is married to maybe not a high school sweetheart.
Kind of.
No,
Kind of,
but like
not really.
she's married to a guy that she went to high school with. So we're gonna call them high school sweethearts for lack of a better term. So like they were high school friends. And so former military, it's military vet. I mean, 21-year-old has accomplished a lot. And you've been blogging for how long?
1.5 years.
1.5 years.
Yeah.
And I know that your Instagram account just broke, 10,000
10,000,
followers?
I
yeah.
know, congratulations.
So close to 11 now.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
How long has Jeff been blogging?
I think almost a year. I think he's like 2 months short of a year.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe not twice as long.
No, not as long. I remember meeting Jeff at holiday party. And he wasn't blogging yet, but he was going to events with you. And I remember having that conversation with him that he was like, I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to do it. Because he's seen your success.
He loved the events that I would take him to. And he kept saying like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then one day I just got fed up and I was like, this is your name. That you're going to start this. I made your website. Here's your social media accounts. Do with it what you will.
Yes.
But what do you think when you went to these conferences though, and people are like, "You're Jeff's wife"? Like, what is your thought? Does that bother you? Does it not bother you?
Bothers me.
And why does it bother you?
I guess because I taught him everything he knows, and like, it's like I don't get any credit for it because I guess nobody really knows who I am because his market isn't as saturated as mine is. And since he's a guy and he's not bad looking, people tend to like notice him more. And he's way more out there than I am.
I wouldn't credit it to his looks, first of all. No, he's not a bad looking guy.
Not just his looks.
He's not a bad looking guy. But I have to tell you, I feel the same way because for a very long time, I was Juan's wife, and I still am. Every time we go places, and Juan is the one that's very recognizable because he is in a field where there's a lot of orange. He's the blue. You know what I mean? And so.
But do you think it has to do just the fact that it's a male, or do you think it has to do with his personality, or maybe the way he engages? Or
do you think you have the same personality he does?
No,
because you get the same recognition.
No, I was going to say I can understand
you get the same recognition
because Jeff, and we're going to have to pull him in, aren't we?
Yeah,
we might have to.
So you know what?
The thing is,
you know
Jeff
what we'll do
friendly.
is. Let's have the conversation, and then I think what we'll do is we'll have a long conversation, and probably the second half will run next week. Okay. So why don't we do that?
Yeah.
So we'll bring him in after.
Yes, we'll bring him in after.
Okay.
Awesome. So, but Jeff has a very vivacious,
very
vivacious
personality.
Awesome word.
Very vivacious personality. He's like.
That doubles when he drinks alcohol.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. But he has a very vivacious personality that, like, he talks to everybody.
Literally everybody.
Like, I don't think he understands the meaning of the word stranger.
No.
He does work the room, and I think... I could say that the opposite is true for us, because I think that for me, like, yeah, people know who I am or whatever, like, just because I am one of the few guys in the room. But and you've had this happen to you, and you've had this happen to you, where, you know, you meet me, and I think you met us together, so it's not the same, but you meet us, you meet me, and, you know, you're like, okay, like, yeah, like, you know, I understand who this guy is.
We
and
click.
then you meet her, and you're like...
Her in terms of me.
You meet Angelica,
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, she's my girlfriend.
Yes.
Oh, she's so cool. I want to talk to her. I want to tell her my secrets.
Here's the difference.
Yes.
Here's the difference.
No, it's true.
I work on it, though, right?
I met you guys at the same time.
And so I think for us, it's the reverse.
But Angelica was sitting next to me, and I literally, like, almost
We gravitated.
cried.
We gravitated towards each other.
And I think that's what happens all the time.
I
I
met
think
Juan first.
For us,
and,
it's the
and we have
opposite.
friends where this has happened. We've actually even mentioned it on the show before.
Yeah.
It's like, you meet Juan first, and that's great. But you meet Angelica, and it's like, Juan, I love you, but no, you're Angelica's husband.
Yeah. So the difference here is that
But I think it has more to do with personality.
I know. I've worked on my relationships. Jeff is an awesome guy, but even if you just meet him once, like you understand, like, oh, okay. Because it is the market, and it is very saturated, and he's one among, you know, where there is 200, he's one of 10, literally.
Yes.
Like, that's the way it is. And so I do understand. I do where you find yourself. I've gone to conferences where nobody knows who the hell I am, and I go with Juan, and they're like, hold on, I've seen you in pictures. Juan's wife. What? Remind me of your name again. And I'm like, oh, my name's Angelica. And then I'm like, and then I feel like maybe I do what Jeff does, where I work the room. I'm like, you better not like you better remember.
But you're talking one conference, and I'm actually talking about two separate conferences and other events where I've seen this happen. Yeah. And other events where I've seen this happen, where one, it's not just people who have met Jeff in person who have this kind of reaction. Two, it's not just where after they've had an opportunity to observe him and to be the recipients of the vivacious personality, where they've had this kind of reaction. But I do think that as they both are progressing in their careers as professional bloggers, he is actually getting more recognition than her. And somehow I'm seeing people start to go, oh, well, yeah, I know you're a blogger too, but you're Jeff's wife.
Yeah.
But the thing that's why I find interesting, and I think maybe is kind of not contradicting, but I think it's like, you know, Jeff is getting recognized, but I think you're getting a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm getting the work. He doesn't really get that much work.
I think because the
numbers,
the numbers and the aesthetics of what you're doing. So
I hear a lot of that. I hear a lot. Say what you want to say. What are you holding back?
I'm not holding back. I'm saying I think it's because it's the aesthetics of what you're doing. I think there's a certain style, and I think even though I think you're more of an introvert. Like I think I can identify with you because I think like you're more like me. You're more of an introvert.
I think you're
and
trying to find excuses.
And how many bloggers have we met that will say that I'm an introvert, which seems an odd statement for people who make their livings from presenting your lives to strangers
online.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think what Juan's
that
doing is making excuses. So yeah, you might not get recognized as much,
No,
but you get more of the work.
Yes,
but you get as much work, right?
No,
but the reality is this much: is that it is happening to her because I've been on the recipient side of things where I put in so much work.
Happening, but what I'm saying is
give
that
me
I think
a second. So I do as much work as you do on that blog, and I've worked it. Like I've taken pictures. I mean, you can.
But
He's such a good writer.
Juan of words. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. That's his name, right? But then 3 months in, we figured it out. We were like, you know what? It's not going to be Mexican Dichos. This is what's going to be. But we had the blog name, and it couldn't be changed anymore. So that's what we stuck to, right? But then all of a sudden, no matter how much work I put in and all that work, and still the credit does go to Juan because he is more recognizable.
So, Ashley. Your primary channel is Instagram. Mm-hmm. Why don't you, for those people who have no idea the amount of work that goes into one of these photos, why don't you break it down so they understand that this is a real business?
Yeah.
So, what's involved and, how you set up the creative and how you have to think about how the photo meshes with the rest of it and how it applies to your brand and meets your objectives. And
I think she's asking you for the secret sauce.
No, I'm not.
Just kidding.
I'm not asking for the secret sauce, but I want her to explain to those who are listening that don't do this for a living. Mm-hmm. Those people who do this for a living understand how much work and strategy is involved in this. There is, it's not just taking a picture and being pretty.
Yeah.
It's not just, oh, look how much fun they're having. There's a lot of intent behind it. So walk through
It's also a lot of arguments.
Yes.
Jeff
But before we move on to that, let me just say that I'm not trying to deny that whatever is happening because it may be.
And I'm not trying to sound like a hater on Jeff either.
No, all I'm saying is
his money's my money. So.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that I think that the personality has something to do with it too. I mean, that's all my perspective.
I thrive with people I know.
Yeah, and that's it takes me a while to open up to people, but once I do, then I'm like, okay, we're cool, and I'll tell you. I'll talk, the way I talk to Angelica to everybody. And, but it takes me a while to get there.
And Jeff just talks like that to everybody.
And so does Angelica. She's like, oh, I'm going to walk into a room and I'm going to tell people what's on top of my mind. And I'm like, don't say that.
I've had a lot of moments where I'm like, oh my God, Jojo.
Yeah, Juan has those moments with me too. He does. He has a lot of those moments.
Like when he said Papi Blood, I was like, oh. I literally hid behind my hand. I was like, oh.
And yes, listeners, we're going to give him a chance to come in and talk to. I understand everyone's out there going, oh, well, you're just railing on this poor guy who's sitting in the lobby taking care of their daughter while, he's being, he knowingly, because I know he knows you're in here talking about this.
He does.
So talk a little bit about the Instagram, the work, the amount of work that the two of you actually put behind his photos and your photos and the work that you do.
Mm-hmm. So we are each other's photographers because if we went out and bought a photographer, it would be about $200 every session.
An hour.
Yes. Mm. So as a couple, we argue about dumb stuff. But when we take pictures of each other, the arguments get a little bit heated. And so there's that. And then it's like you have to decide what outfit you're going to wear. Like the colors, do they go with what you have on Instagram? Do the location match? You have to scout locations because you can't go and take pictures of the same place like all the time because people are like, what's going on? And then you have to think of captions. Is this going to offend anybody? And if it does, like, what kind of response are you gonna get? The hashtag you're using, like, have you used it multiple times? And if you have, like, don't you think it's time to get a new one so you get new audience members? It's interacting with everybody on a daily basis just so that they know you're not just, like, dumping pictures and not interacting with your community. It's collaborating with other bloggers so that you reach a new audience. It's
a lot of work.
It's a lot.
And how long is that process? Like, say if you're like, I need to take pictures for next week, like say next week you have your pictures already planned out. How far in advance did you?
I got tired just listening to that. I was like, oh my god.
But how far in advance did you plan that though?
Scouting locations, picking outfits. Like how many hours do you think is put into play for about a photo session, quote unquote?
Okay, so we usually shoot. Well, now since the time change, we shoot between 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. So literally all day we're like, okay, how many outfits do you think we can fit in this 1 hour? Is there a restroom nearby? Do you think we could park somewhere where we can change in the car and do different outfits?
So daily, every day you're taking pictures, like.
We try to.
Oh,
sometimes
wow.
it doesn't always work because I do take care of my little brother.
Okay.
And so going out with 2 babies is like way too much. Like Camila's already enough as it is.
As y'all will hear in just a minute.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think this is really interesting because it's like kind of like hearing the other side of Instagram, because people always think, you always hear like your Instagram life, the Instagram life, and how like it's so you put the best foot forward, you show the best of you, who you are, and especially like in the fashion and beauty industry, you have to like, everything has to kind of look beautiful. And so the other side of it is that it's not always so beautiful kind of putting it together.
I think Juan got a taste of it because I'm not trying to make him an Instagram husband, but I am trying to get him to be a better photographer. Yeah. And so I'm still at the point where I'm still setting like the settings on the camera, scouting the location, and then I get 10 minutes of him like trying to take pictures, and if I go over, he gets frustrated and it's enough, and he's like, oh, whatever, you just use it. And I'm like, I can't. It's a fuzzy picture. Can you focus the like lens? And
if you see Jeff,
it gets hard.
If you see Jeff have blurry pictures on Instagram, it's because I've gotten so frustrated because he takes forever to pose, and I'm like, Camila's crying, like we need to hurry up and go. But I think we know because we both do it. It's not like he's just taking my pictures, but I'm also taking his too. So.
Do you think that it's the fact that you're working together as a married couple? Do you think that even despite the arguments and despite the fights, do you think that it's made your marriage like stronger? Do you think that it's made you more compassionate to each other?
I don't know. Well, it's hard.
Juan and Angelica, I can tell you because I know them. I've worked with them together as a couple for a long time now, and there are specific things where Juan makes Angelica better and Angelica makes Juan better in certain ways.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you go back to even when the blogging started, where Angelica was the one that was out there putting him up for awards and introducing him to people and pushing him and pulling him, and Juan just wanted to write. And that was at the beginning.
Yeah, there was a lot of moments where now that we work together and we're constantly with each other, there was a time, not just recently, where we fought over, like, personal life happened, right? And we fought, and we didn't talk for about 2 days. And he comes to me later.
Jeff went through that, like, recently, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. It must be the weather. But, so, he comes to me, and he's
it's
like...
It's the supermoon.
Yeah. He comes to me, and he does this rub on my back, and I'm like, what do you want? And he's like, I missed you. And I'm like, we're in the same house. How did you miss me? But it is... You get to know your partner a lot differently when you work with them.
And I think if you're very different personalities, like like the way we are. Like we're very different
Yeah.
personalities. Like I think like I'm very structured. Like I like to have structure. I like to know like what I'm working on for the
I think
day.
that's a man thing.
Like I'm
though.
very structured.
Well, it might be, but I'm just like him.
Sandra's the same way.
And Angelica's more
I think
like,
I makes these leaps.
yeah.
Like
you do.
forget jumps. It's like a wormhole, and she's way over there, and I'm like, I don't see it.
Oh my god, me and Jeff had the argument the other day because I was like thinking this, but I thought I told him, but I did. So we got in the car. He's like, okay, where are we going? I'm like, what do you mean where we're going? We had this whole plan.
That happens often, but I get to experience my husband the way I think you guys. I wished I would have been your age, experience my husband then, so we can. You get to allocate.
I think we're still
your
learning.
feelings.
But it gives
We're
you an
still-
appreciation for the other person
Yeah.
because I was like, for a while, I was like, okay, she's just like, I don't know, she's in La La Land. I don't know what.
Something's wrong with her.
her.
That we heard that a lot. I don't know,
now-
Angelica. Just stop it.
But now that we work together all the time, often, like now I know what her strong suits are. So when I'm like trying to think of something like creative, for example, and I'm like, here's what I think, but I feel like I'm missing something. So I'll bring it to her and I'll be like, so this is what I'm thinking. And then she'll be like, all of a sudden she'll come out of left field and I'm like, I'll argue with her like, no, I don't agree. And that doesn't make sense. But then I'll go back and think about it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that does make sense.
Yeah.
And I'll
That
end up using
happens.
it. And I think the same thing goes for her. Like she'll like, when she's doing something and it's much more like, whether it's technical or like, she comes to me and she's like, this is what I want to do. How do I do
so
it?
a lot of his strong points are a lot of the more difficult portions of things. I tend to look at the very small details that are gonna make it noticeable, make it make it memorable, which is what I'm trying to say. But he and Sandra are so good at delegating like the big things. Like they can bring in there's something, right? There's something at hand, and all of a sudden, so right there's a word. All of a sudden, they're coming with essays, and they're like, "This is it, this is it." And I'm coloring with my crayons, like, "Okay, I'll color here, and I'll do this, and I'll do that." And that's basically the way we work. Because these two guys, they're monstrosities, and they have the same
Just call us monsters.
Yeah,
Like, they're
pretty sure.
no, like monstrosities in the impact that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like I can't say it enough. They know what they're doing.
If I've convinced you that I know what I'm doing, I have really, really got you fooled.
No, Sandra, you like to say that, but I beg to differ. They're in the industry because they know it. And I come with my crayons, and it's fun, and it's light, and I talk about these things, and they're like, something's wrong with her. She's talking about this and doing I don't know what, and I'm like, no, we need to have, because we have a business on the side, and I'm like, no, we need to have this many accounts, and this is what I want to do, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, she's crazy. There's something wrong with her. And I get that a lot. But you guys, I can see kind of Jeff maybe has my personality. Where
A little more, yeah.
He's like I think he gravitates towards the very like
Visual. And
yeah.
because it happens when we take pictures too. Because he's like, I want the scene. I'm like, the scene's not going to show up in your Instagram, Jeff. It's only a little square. You only got so much.
But I can see you like I can like vision you like tolling away like silently doing the whole thing where you're tolling away silently, where you're like doing the back end work and making sure everything's getting done the way it's supposed to. And
Yeah, I Jeff's website, like the coding, like I have the patience for it. Jeff doesn't. Like the digital art, like he doesn't have the patience for it. And like when I like his videos sometimes, because we started with a new program and he doesn't know how to use it. And so I kind of just like to throw myself into new things, and then I like learn along the way. And Jeff is not like that. He's like, tell me how to do this. And like,
you see, you're describing these two. You guys like know the how do I say it, right?
And
There's
then-
an anatomy to a working, functioning something, right? There's a beating heart, then there's the skin and stuff like that. Like, you guys are the skeletons of a lot of the things that we do, which is, I think, why you did so well on Instagram, because
I think so.
you looked at it and you seen it, you had a vision, and you went for it.
but I don't know how to explain it though.
But that's fine. But no, you did a really good job.
Yeah.
But I just wanted people to understand that there's a lot of thought that goes into this.
Yeah.
It isn't just so you go out and look, I took 100 pictures and one of them was phenomenal. That's not how this works.
No.
Yes, I know, it's really, really bad of me to stop it right there. But as I warned you at the beginning, this is a 2-part conversation. You're just going to have to tune in next week when we actually bring Jeff into the room so he can talk from his perspective. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Little Radio Show. We invite you to check out our iTunes and our Stitcher channels and leave us a rating or a review. You can find the link to both channels at thelittleradioshow.com.